Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to show you my 9-month PhD progress in implant placement, loading, and soft tissue management in the aesthetic zone. I'm a second-year resident at the Department of Prosthodontics. My vision is to provide the highest quality implant restorations with the most time and cost-effective workflow while minimizing patient discomfort based on scientific and clinical evidence. And my mission towards achieving it is to implement the best implant-prosthodontic treatment for the anterior region into everyday practice. To achieve this goal, we have 3 ongoing projects investigating single anterior maxillary implants. We would like to investigate hard and soft tissue outcomes of different placement and loading protocols, as well as comparing CAD/CAM versus conventional healing abutments with 2 separate meta-analyses. And we would like to investigate the precision of digital versus conventional impression in capturing the emergence profile with a crossover clinical study. In my first project, we would like to investigate the currently available 12 different types of timings of implant placement and loading protocols. You can see in the table with the number and letter combinations. The numbers always indicate the timing of implant placement into the alveolar bone after extraction, and the letters will indicate the timing of prosthetic rehabilitation after implantation, and the increasing numbers and letters will mean the later the rehabilitation happens. Conventionally, implant treatment followed late placement and loading after the complete heal of the extraction socket, but the buccal bone is thinner and resorbs faster in the anterior region. Also, patients would prefer the restoration of missing anterior teeth as soon as possible due to aesthetic reasons. Therefore, immediate treatments would become favored, and we would like to investigate how the timing of implant treatment would affect hard and soft tissue outcomes. And we would like to compare all 12 types of protocols to each other with a network meta-analysis and to the conventional type 4C protocol, investigating implant survival and marginal bone losses and primary outcomes, and as secondary outcomes, soft tissue parameters and aesthetic results. We have searched both English and Chinese databases from which we identified 43 articles of 35 different randomized control trials. Well, fortunately, implant failure rates were really low, but it means that a network meta-analysis for implant survival was not really feasible. Therefore, only a proportional meta-analysis was conducted for different protocols. But you can see the list of network meta-analysis we conducted. Due to the shortness of time, I will only be showing you the pink aesthetic score results, which is very crucial when talking about the aesthetic region. It is a score evaluating the gingival aesthetics with 7 aspects. For each aspect, we can give a maximum of 2 points. Therefore, altogether 14 points can be reached. The higher the point, the better the outcome is. In this analysis, we could compare 8 protocols with 22 studies, including more than 1,600 patients. You can see on this rank diagram, the lighter the color means the higher probability of ranking. And if you like numbers, then you can also see the sucra values from 0 to 100. The higher the value means the higher probability of that protocol ranking better. We can see that the 1A, that is immediate placement with immediate loading, ranks first, followed by early placement with delayed loading or immediate loading. We can also see the protocols ranked in order from best to worst, starting from the top left corner in this league table showing mean differences with 95% credible interval with no unit. If we look at the first row, all protocols compared to the 1A protocol, we can see that 1A is statistically significantly better than these protocols bracketed with red. And we see if we set the threshold for clinical significance at 1 point, then the 1A protocol is clinically significant than the conventional 4C protocol. Though all protocols provide good implant survival and good marginal bone preservation, the immediate implant treatment performs significantly better in terms of aesthetic results, and it also has a tendency to rank high in other aspects as well. If we investigate the same placement, then immediate loading is generally more favorable than delayed loading. Therefore, we would advise the application of immediate implant treatment in the anterior region. And if for certain reasons immediate placement is not possible, then we would still advise the application of at least immediate loading with late placement as well. But we would still need more randomized control trials with long-term follow-up for stronger evidence. This is the first network meta-analysis of randomized control trials, and we included Chinese articles as well. The network allowed us to analyze several protocols that the conventional pairwise meta-analysis could not analyze, and we also made analysis for soft tissue and aesthetic results. Unfortunately, due to the low number of studies, we had several weak networks and weak evidence, and there were still missing data for some protocols and long-term results as well. I have just finished my manuscript, and hopefully we will be able to send it for internal review soon. It will be finished by 8th of July. Next, I would like to show you some results of my clinical study investigating the accuracy of digital versus conventional impression taking. As the natural tooth or prosthetic rehabilitation emerges through the gingiva, this transgingival shape is taken up by the soft tissue, and this shape is the so-called emergence profile. And this correct design is crucial for the long-term success and aesthetic results. It can be designed in several ways, but in the anterior region, maybe application of a provisional temporary restoration would be advisable. And after we manage to shape the soft tissue correctly with the provisional, we have to copy its shape onto the final restoration. And the conventional gold standard method of doing so is with an individualized impression coping that you can see on the picture. And from this we can pour a conventional gypsum model. For the digital pathway, we can either directly scan the emergence profile immediately after removing the provisional restoration, or we can scan the provisional outside the mouth indirectly and then superimpose it with the intraoral scans, which is why it's also called a multi-scan technique. We can either work with this digital model, or we can fabricate a physical model with 3D printing or milling. We had several aims in this project, such as investigating the accuracy of digital versus conventional impressions, the 3D printed versus conventional model, and we also wanted to measure the amount of mucosal collapse after the removal of the provisional restoration. We also wanted to set up a protocol for indirect scanning method with a preliminary in vitro study, and this is what we currently have results for. The question here was whether there is a difference between the accuracy of extraoral indirect scanning when the provisional is held in hand or is kept in a fixed position as seen on this picture. We would scan the provisional with the intraoral scanner to be used later in the in vivo part of the study. With two methods, holding the provisional in hand or keeping it in a fixed position. And then we would compare these scans with the scan obtained with a high precision laboratory scanner and compare the dimensional deviations of the restoration. Whichever proved to be more precise would be later used in our in vivo study for indirect scanning. After conducting the measurements, we can see that when the provisional is in a fixed position, there is an average deviation of 43 micrometers with plus minus 13 micrometers standard deviation, while with handheld provisional it's lower, it's only 31 plus minus 5 micrometers. Therefore, the handheld provisional provides a more accurate scan and will be used later in our in vivo part of the study. Again, you can see an overview of my ongoing projects, and I would like to thank your attention with a quote from the Greek poet Hesiod, "But before the road of excellence, the immortal gods have placed one." Thank you.
All right, I just have a general question, just looking at the soft tissue next to the emergence profile, what would be the optimal thickness? Is there a difference in the front teeth and the molar teeth for this thickness of the soft tissue there?
Where
Is there an optimal thickness there?
I wouldn't say how many millimeters the optimal thickness, but the keratinized tissue should be at least 3 millimeters thick. But generally, if we want to obtain an optimal soft tissue profile, we need the patient to have a thick gingival phenotype.
This is just a note for the committee and also for those who are not in the dentistry group. And this is something which is an aim of a program, actually, to make it international. So what we saw here, I mean, there was a nice plan at the beginning, but then it appeared, and a nice question, but as it appeared that there was not enough study in English. But we were lucky enough that Cindy knows not only English, but also Hungarian, and especially she knows Chinese as well. So therefore, that she was able actually to look at the Chinese language literature, which is huge, and actually it could be added to this study, and then actually double the number of the studies, and then from non-conclusive results that now we get some conclusive ones. And I think we are just very lucky. You are lucky too that you know Chinese, of course. I mean, you were born with that. So, I mean, and I think this is important to know so everybody understands. And also that if somebody has a problem like this, then we have a person actually who could help. No, I put a heavy load on you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Related to Professor Varga's question, did you try to analyze the data in English literature versus the data in the Chinese literature, or you combined immediately together? Because you mentioned as in the weakness that there is a weak network. I didn't know what exactly it means. So are there significant differences in methodology and then the studies between the English and the Chinese?
Thank you for the question. You mentioned weak network. It actually means if we look at this network, for example, then we can see that some protocols are only investigated by one study, and that is weakly connected to the rest of the network, which means that evidence they provide is not that strong. And if we started with only the English database and we could not find enough articles to do this whole analysis, which is why we then search for Chinese databases. Generally looking through the data, we didn't analyze them separately, but just generally looking through them, they actually have similar results from the English and the Chinese databases.